a lot of us will, I don't even want to say self-doubt, but part of it could be self-doubt. I always believe that I have to be better. Like, better. What can I do to be better? What can I do to be better? Apparently, that's a difference between men and women. Women want to be very prepared, may hesitate to take the plunge. Hi, this is Pia Cayetano. Welcome to my podcast, My Daily Race. Welcome back to my podcast, My Daily Race. This is Pia Cayetano, and I am in Cavite with a very, very special guest, Governor Athena Tolentino. Welcome to my podcast, Athena.
And welcome to Cavite.
I'm so excited to be in Cavite, Athena. You know, siguro you were probably not even a teenager. Yeah, no, because I've been a senator. My first run for the Senate was in 2004. So that's 20 years ago, right? And I've been biking also since that time. So you were a mere child when I started biking all over Cavite. Not naman all over kasi the province is so big. But coming from Alabang, which is where I live, dumadaan Danghare and then cross Aguinaldo. And then either I go up to Tagaytay City, sometimes via Alfonso, but my other common route is Amadeo. That's my
the
favorite.
longer way.
Yeah, Amadeo. And then Tagaytay is also your hometown,
Yes,
diba?
it is.
So there, or my other favorite route is all the way to Naik. That one is a flatter route.
Yes.
Kasi we just pass through Trece Martires and then flat lang yan all the way. May konting kunat, but as opposed to Amadeo, which is really uphill. And like, it was, for many, many years, honestly, it was my joy. Kasi public service to me came unexpectedly kasi my dad died, and then long story short, I was a lawyer without any desire to be a lawmaker. That's my destiny, and I became a senator, and biking was my little time away kasi you can't check your phone. It's just my time alone. So that's how special biking in Cavite. Obviously my dad was my inspiration, but I had no desire in my heart to be a public servant. No, I really thought my life path would be as a lawyer in the private sector. So we both had parents in the public sector, your father and also your mother,
Yes.
diba? And so here you are now. I remember a few years ago, you were elected as Vice Governor, and then the Governor, Governor Remulla, was appointed. So then you became governor. You were
The
sworn
youngest.
in. The
And the
youngest.
first
and tama, but the first
female.
ever female.
Yes.
That's a title you'll carry for the rest of your life.
And I'm very proud of that.
And you should be. And you should be. My gosh. So we're very similar also in that way because I'm also the youngest ever elected female senator. But tell me, how did you feel growing up seeing your dad and mom in public service? And at what point, if any, did you decide in your early days to be that one day? Or how did it happen? Tell me.
I really immersed myself when I would accompany my parents at work. I really enjoyed to the point that
Talaga?
I would sometimes skip school to attend the medical missions, the orphanages, schools, everything.
So you mentioned medical missions, orphanage. So that social service component is what got to you.
Yes.
Because your mom's a doctor, di ba?
She's a dentist. So in our
Dentist.
medical missions before she ran for vice mayor, siya mismo yung nagbubunot ng ngipin.
Why? Tapos
Up to now.
as a kid,
Yes.
nag-assist ka dyan, I'm
Yes.
sure.
Tagahawak ng ulo.
Oh my. So hindi ka takot sa dentista? Kasi
Just my mom.
most kids, di ba, most kids takot sa dentista. Ako
Yeah.
takot ako sa dentista. Okay, so that was your immersion.
Yes.
Wow.
And then upon graduating high school, I asked my dad, can I join?
Can you
Kahit as
officially
SK?
run as
Yes.
something? Oo.
And then the day before filing was when he told me, are you ready?
The day
gonna file.
before?
Yes. So
Pagpagulat naman.
I was very caught off guard. Pero I cried. I was so happy.
Oh, yes. So
I was very happy.
Tears of joy.
Yes.
Baliktad tayo. Ako, tears of fear, tears of kasi yung story ko dyan is si Alan asked me when our dad was dying. Kaya the timing was so hard.
Right.
Our dad was very sick. dying. And then he said, if ever, ate, will you run? And I'm like, oh, para mo akong pinapatay. Yeah,
But you're doing great.
oh, thank you.
And you're also one of my inspirations.
Oh, thank you. And you've told me that. You're so sweet.
Yes.
When you were
I
newly,
always tell you that.
when you were, wait, so not SK pa, but ano yung next mo? Sige, continue the story. So sorry, SK muna yon, tama ba? Or no, counselor ka agad?
Counselor.
Counselor na yon. And
Yes.
when was that?
2019.
2019. So that time,
And-
nung naging counselor ka, that's when I started communicating with you. Kasi nga, she's friends with my daughter Nadine.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, welcome to this world, and all the
And the
best if you
advices.
need anything,
Yeah.
diba? So what was it like? So you ran, of course you won.
And that's when Taal erupted.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And the same time it erupted, both of my parents, congressman and mayor, they were out of the country for a conference.
Oh man.
So I had to do the acting mayor. And I was in the Sunday market when it erupted in Salcedo. So I got a call, please come to Tagaytay. The volcano's erupting. So I went straight there. And then I was very overwhelmed as well.
Yeah, of
because
course.
I didn't
It was
know where
bad.
to begin. Yes.
It was bad.
Yes. So when I got to the command center, everyone was already there asking.
And this is the
what do
Tagay
we
City
do?
Command Center?
Yes.
Tama? Okay.
That was the first question they asked me, what do we do?
Yeah.
So I went to the bathroom. I cried a bit. And then I prayed,
Yeah.
Lord, help
Yeah.
please.
Yeah. And can I pause? Kasi, I love it that you're so candid about it, because one of the difficulties of accepting the job as a public servant is we feel that there's a certain role, there's a certain image we have to portray. And I love it that you admit that you cried, you broke down and
Yeah.
cried. I break down and cry all the time. But that's just our way of expressing emotions, which I think then after that, guess what?
Stronger.
Diba? You're like,
Yes.
okay, so good,
Yes.
let's do this. Also,
Yes.
what happened next?
And that's when we decided to open all the evacuation centers, even the schools. And then we slowly picked up the residences in Batangas, took
Yeah.
them over,
Yeah.
so and so. And luckily, a lot of donors and
Of
LGUs nearby, they also helped out with that.
Yeah, yeah. And there were also a lot of animals that needed
Yes.
rescuing. Like I remember, because diba Tagaytay is known for the horseback riding, diba?
What we did for that, the horses in the Taal Island itself, we had got in touch with the Philippine Navy, and then they picked them up,
Yeah.
and then we housed them first in our farm.
Oh.
And during the transport, a couple of them died, and then only 23, I think, survived, and now they're 40 plus.
So what's the status now of the island? Hindi back to the way it was before?
It's slowly going back, but it's still unstable due to the activity of the
Yeah.
volcano.
I guess that makes it difficult, no? What people need to understand is the difficult job of a mayor, a governor, basically an executive decision maker, is how do you balance the need of your people for work, the benefits of tourism, kasi that was a major tourist site, but also the safety of the people,
Yes.
kasi that's right on the island, diba? To be clear, for those who are not familiar, and I want sana a picture posted, magbabangka ka pa going there. That's part of the adventure, eh. Magbabangka ka going to the island, bababa ka doon, and pagdating mo doon, you can ride a horse, you can hike, but the common thing was the horses, diba?
Yes.
No, that's really something. Like I've attended sustainability conferences, and it's really something that you need to plan. You have to have the foresight to say, like, seriously, is this going to be a safe place to do this? Or can you do it in a way that madali rin mo sila paalisin? It's tough.
A lot of them are very attached to their ancestral homes in that area. So there's still a couple of families there
living
now.
there. But
They
yun
don't
nga,
wanna go.
it's one thing for them to live there and at least there's enough time to tell them to evacuate. It's another thing if their horses are there, kasi parang later on, babalik din yan sa atin as government officials na, ba't nyo pinayagan, di ba? So that's why I like these conversations, para people can understand na, wow, these are the tough decisions that have to be made. So that was your baptism of fire.
Yes, it was.
Oh,
And that's when COVID hit. So I
and
said,
really?
we're prepared with the masks because we used that during the Taal eruption.
You know what? I totally remember that, because I remember having discussions with people that said, may naiwan pa kami dito dahil nag-stock up kami, nangailangan kami nung Taal. Oh my
Yes.
gosh, yes talaga. Wow, I have to remember that this batch of public servants really went through a lot during that time.
Oh, and before the eruption of Taal, because I'm also a psychology graduate,
Are
So,
you?
yes, it was part of my
Oh.
final project.
Not art, not arts.
No,
Okay.
yeah.
Because I have to say lang, and maybe we'll have time to talk about later on. Like, she's a passionate artist, a very talented artist. And I think that's how I got to know her first because my daughter
The
was
painting.
raving about your paintings. So sabi ko, pwede bumili na ako bago ka sumikat. So ngayon habang busy nag-governor, bibili na ako. Kasi pag nakabalik na siya, pag nagka-time ka na to do your artwork, baka hindi ko na
Tuloy-tuloy na.
ma-afford. But so as you were saying, so psychology not related to your art.
No. So, before the Taal erupted, I did a proposal as a counselor for
Yeah.
Katuwang sa Pangkalusugang Mental.
Okay.
And then at first, it was just a small office that we borrowed from the mayor's office.
Right.
So I'm also glad that they were very supportive about it. It consisted of free referrals, 24/7 hotline. And then now the LGU fully
Embraced it.
Yes. So it's an official department now. And they added more services like medicines, referrals.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I think one of the most important component is the hotline, no?
Yes.
Because number one, just like any emergency, can you imagine if wala kang matakbuhan na emergency room? So that's it. That's the emergency service for people who suddenly are in need, diba?
Yes.
That's great. And then after that, the support system is there. So hopefully they don't have as many emergencies because the support system is there.
Yes.
Wow, probably one of the very first LGUs to have that.
And it was very helpful with Taal and the COVID because of the PTSD
Correct.
seminars that we did
Correct.
in the evacuation centers.
Can you imagine, guys, 10, 20, many years ago, nobody even talks about PTSD. PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
Tama? It's very real for people who've been through this. It could be a accident, like a car accident. It could be a trauma with a death of a loved one, not even you, right?
Yes.
Or like this, a community-based event that caused this, and it may have lifelong effects on people if they don't get the treatment that they need. Wow, it's amazing.
And we also conducted debriefing for our rescue employees.
Yeah,
Stress
kasi
debriefing.
they also saw so much trauma. That's true. And if you're not ready to deal with it, that's where you'll see a lot of people, they become dependent on behaviors, or they develop behaviors that are not necessarily productive, but that's how they cope with the stress. Like, it could be alcohol dependence or drug dependence, or even become abusive kasi they don't have an outlet to express it. Ang galing naman, that is the part I didn't know, that you're a psychologist. Wow. Okay, so fast forward, natapos na rin yung COVID, and towards the latter part of COVID, that's when you ran for election as vice governor, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's what made me prove myself to Sec John Vic at that time.
Good point.
Yes.
Because I was gonna go there. Like, did you know you're ready? Did they know you're ready? And you answered the question. Kasi parang nga, again, baptismal of fire. Like, the people around you saw that you were capable of doing this major role. Wow.
I can honestly say that at that time, I didn't think of myself that I was ready, but I was really willing to take the challenge of serving a bigger scope.
Yeah.
Not just my hometown, but the entire
The whole province.
Yeah.
Can I just say, okay, there is evidence that says that the difference between men and women, tayo mga babae, is, I'm sure people look at me as I'm confident. I'm sure people look at you as you're confident. But a lot of us will, I don't even want to say self-doubt, but part of it could be self-doubt. It could also be, like in my case, never ko naman naisip na, hindi ko yan kaya, hindi ako magaling, bobo ko. I didn't have that kind of negative self-talk. Wala naman ako noon. Confident naman ako in my skills. But I always believe that I have to be better. Like, better. What can I do to be better? What can I do to be better? And then, and this is scientifically nga, most men na talagang hindi pa talaga sila ready, wala naman silang training, ready na ako. So apparently, that's a difference between men and women. Women want to be very prepared, may hesitate to take the plunge unless, like in my case, aralin ko pa to. I need to study some more. I need more experts to brief me. You know? Do you feel that? Because like when you
Yes.
said like, may confidence ka that you can do it, but I got that feeling same as mine na, sure, I'll do it, but you know, like you want to be better. You want to be better. You push yourself really hard.
I was very intimidated at first.
Yeah. Especially because in our work, you're surrounded by men a lot.
Yes.
A lot. And their style is very different. And some of them are literally brusco. Literally very dominant, you know, very different from our style.
Someone told me before when he found out I was running for vice governor, he said, baka mamaya yung mga lalaki sila na nasa bahay. Mag-save kayo para sa mga lalaki. And then I told him, hey, there's a lot of space for everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But having said that, let's talk about that. May ganung mentality na bakit nai-insecure yung mga lalaki. And not all ha, okay? Obviously, you had a father who supported you. My father, that was his dream that I run for public office. Hindi na niya nakita yon. But bakit kasi may ganon na feeling nila when a woman does well, she's easing out a man? That's not the point,
It
right?
shouldn't be the case.
It's never the point. It's about, and what I always emphasize is it's about partnerships. So when I was active in the IPUs, the Interparliamentary Union, legislators all over the world, there's a Women Parliamentary Bureau, but then there's also a gender partnership group. And I love that gender partnership group kasi it emphasized that we are partners, right? Don't be intimidated by women stepping up and participating because we have to do this as partners. What do you think you brought to the provincial capital, or even before you got to the provincial capital, even as councilor of Tagaytay City, right? To be clear, that's her first position, councilor of Tagaytay City. What did you bring naturally? Well, naturally or not, like sinadya mo ba, or what do you think is what did people see now that there's an Athena who's a female leader in the local government scene?
They get shocked of how I am.
And again, ulitin ko female and very young.
Yes.
Kasi iba pa yon.
Yes.
Imagine I was just, so that you know, I understand. I'm much older than you. But as a senator, I was the youngest female when I entered. I'm just a few months older than Bong Revilla. So basically kami yung youngest sa batch namin. And then youngest female ever ako. And then yung mga colleagues ko ay nasa age ng 50s and 60s and 70s. So I get it na young din yung pinasukan ko. Babae ka na nga, ang bata mo pa. So sabi mo, go ahead.
Yeah. That's
They were
very correct. The babae ka na, ang bata mo pa.
Uh-uh.
So that was one of my first challenges the moment I stepped in, because they're also sanay na puro lalaki.
Puro
But
lalaki.
I really don't take that into consideration because I always believe anyone can do it.
Yeah.
Anyone can serve, anyone can help as long as your intentions are correct. There's nothing wrong. You can't be stopped
Galing.
with that. Yeah.
Galing. So you always had that naman,
Yeah.
parang confidence na,
I can do
sorry,
it.
deal with it.
Yeah, I can do it.
Talaga.
I can do it in heels too. Yeah.
Talaga,
Yeah.
galing.
And
But you
then-
felt it. You felt it.
Which one?
That feeling coming from them, whether
Oh,
male or maybe sometimes there's also other female na bata niyan.
Yes.
Tapos
Yes.
babae pa. You could really feel it.
Yes. But what I focused on was not proving myself to them, but proving myself for myself.
Oh,
that
that's
I know I can do
nice.
it.
That's
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. I like that attitude, guys. Prove it to yourself,
Yeah.
'di ba? Tama naman kasi kung yung focus mo is to prove it to them, ang dami nila eh. O sige, ikaw ano problema mo? Ikaw ano problema mo, 'di ba?
And you can't please
and you can't
everyone.
Oh my,
Yeah.
that is something else that I think we can all learn from. You cannot please everyone. It's impossible. I sometimes have this, I'm a people pleaser. So I sometimes have that attitude na I want to please them, I want to please them. I want to convince them. Like I've handled many controversial bills, one of which is the reproductive health bill. And of course, I feel it's my job to communicate properly, right? I'm sure
Yes.
you feel that. You have to communicate it properly. Pero at some point, na-communicate mo na in English, in Tagalog. Ako pa nga, if it's a national issue, in Bisaya. And then hindi pa rin, well then, I can't please everyone. Basta ako, I feel it's my job to communicate it well.
Yes.
Diba?
It's true.
Wow. How do you feel your role affects young girls now, little girls?
I know for a fact that they are very inspired, and I'm very proud of that. Because wherever I go, Ate Athena, idol ko kayo. And I think regardless of how tiring it can be, it's very much worth it just knowing how much you can impact, how much you can give an impact to them.
Wow,
And it's great.
yes.
Yeah.
Truly. I would bike, again, mostly in Cavite. I would get feedback on the streets, no? Babae, babae. Like, I'm like, bakit di ba pwede mag-bike ang babae? But it's just because also it's not common
Yes.
for them. Do you want to ask me any questions?
Yes.
Okay.
You've been mentioned, Senator. You've been mentioning.
You can call me Tita Ate, but I'm Tita mode na for you.
I'm trying
Kasi,
to be professional. Joke lang. Okay, sige. So, Tita, you mentioned earlier how important it is to balance your personal and your work time.
Yeah.
So, I'd also want to know, with your very, very, very busy schedule, how do you do it?
I do like to share that. I have shared that on my podcast. So for those listening, I think it was one of the first topics I took up. But basically, when I ran, and unlike you, it was talagang unplanned, no? I was concerned that the other important things in my life, number one is my kids were still very young. They were 9 and 5 years old.
Oh.
We had just lost my dad. So of course, for me, yung time ko rin with my mom and my brothers important because we were still grieving. I love sports and I love to stay active. And through the deaths of my son and my dad, my lifesaver for me, my sanity was my personal time running or biking. Like, kasi syempre, it was so traumatic for me to have a baby who was sickly and then barely a few months after my dad got very sick. So nag-cope talaga ako through running and I'm a long distance runner and then soon after I took up biking. So I'm like, paano ko ba gagawin yun? But I kind of decided early on that I have to be me. Like I can't sacrifice these things that make me who I am. So I'm a mother. Like I'm so proud of being a mother. I can't, like when I became a senator, of course, people bond, and I'm sure alam mo na to, kunyari businessmen, they bond playing golf. Do you play golf?
Yes.
Great. That's great. That's great. Eh, hindi, natuto ako mag-golf, pero hindi natuloy-tuloy because I kept getting pregnant. So, parang, oh, yan na, I'm on the greens na, nag-golf, nabuntis, oh, stop muna. I mean, stop lang kasi ang hirap. I was
Yeah.
exercising in other ways. Anyway, my point is, so I'm like, how do I bond with my colleagues and other politicians? And the stylist, diba, late dinners, kasi we have work. Late dinners, tapos with drinks. And I don't really drink, paminsan-minsan lang. And then I really want to go home to be with my kids. So I grappled with that. And then in the beginning, I didn't even admit na I have to go to be with my kids. But at some point, I made a decision that I have to be who I am. If I won't be the role model for other women to be able to stand up and say, I need to be a mom, I need to be a daughter, because you're still young, you don't have kids yet, you don't, but you're a daughter also, and you have other things. I have to do this. So I started saying it. And that gave me, that empowered me na, I have to go, I have kids, okay? It doesn't work that way for you men because most of you don't bring your daughters, your kids to the doctor. Most of you don't tuck them in bed. Not that I do all the time because nga, I had work that prevented me from doing it often, but I'd like to do it once in a while naman. What does my sports and my passion for fitness, how do I justify that? I just did. I'm like, I need to do this for myself. Dati hindi ko pa sasabihin. Then now I'm like, kunyari go to work and like, guys, nagbike, like, I don't brag about it, but like, oh, saan ka galing? Nagbike ako this morning, 2 hours, nagrun ako. And then I remember the late Joker Arroyo, who is my idol, was one of my mentors. He would say, oh, you're in the front, you're in the papers again. Sabi ko, really? Sabi niya, yeah, here. Then he'll show me, hindi naman front page, pero back. Oh, it's as good as front, right? Kasi kabilang side ng front.
Yes.
Na I'm running in a race. And he's like, I guess it's okay, even if you're in the papers not doing work. You're still in the papers, sabi niya sa akin. Sabi ko, but it's for a good cause. I'm running to show how important we balance our life, fitness. So that's what I do. I own it na lang. I own it. And yeah, sometimes it causes a bit of internal friction. Like, how much more time do I spend doing this? And even with my staff. But even with my staff, they know I'm a better senator. I'm a better boss if I have my personal time. Sila na yung tumutulong sa akin to block off my schedule to do those things.
So that mentality was like your boundary, your way of setting your
But it took a
boundary.
while, huh?
Right.
It wasn't like an immediate thing. Like, it took a while to set that. And even up to now, like, I'm a candidate now, going all over the world. Di naman world. The country.
Yes.
I was telling you that my favorite sport now is paddle. So, unlike running where, actually, even with running, you can't run anywhere. Kasi, kung nandun ka sa gitna ng city, di ka naman tatakbo, maghanap ka ng gym. But in my case, I love to run outdoor. So, I have to find a place to run. Now, sa paddle, I have to be in the club, right? It's very specific. So, if they see me, they'll be like, oh, buti may time ka. And I'm like, I make time. I make
That's
time.
great.
Yeah. And
Sana all.
and I always pray that there's a way to multitask. So guess what? As you know, Nadine plays paddle na rin, my
I
daughter.
see, yeah.
And so does the ate, Maxine. And so does the little boy, Lucas.
Oh, he does?
He does na rin.
Wow.
So for example, okay, Monday, I came from Batangas, okay? And then parang hilong-hilo ako. The end of the day brought me back to my paddle club because I had to cancel one trip because naka-chopper ako and delikadong lumipad. So napauwi kami ng maaga. So sabi ko, okay, so at least I'll be able to squeeze in my workout. So I walk in, I'm hilong-hilo. And then my son was there. Like, here, hi mom. I'm like, hi. And I'm so happy because that's his training day. And then I was there and I got to see him. And that's how it is with my daughters. I get to see them there. So two things are achieved. I get to work out and then I get to be with my kids. So yeah, I do believe in the power of prayer and manifestation. Like, if that's important to you, it will happen. And that's why siguro in the between the time you welcome me to this beautiful capital and we entered your office, mga 3 times na namin napag-usapan yung art niya. Kasi I'm encouraging her to find the time for her art. And I don't know how that will evolve kasi I think with art, you really immerse yourself,
Yeah.
you know? But I do think, you need an office there where you're paintings.
I will soon. And I will invite you there.
Yes,
Yes.
Please do.
If I
Please
may
do.
ask you
And
one
yeah,
more
ask pa.
question regarding the legislations here.
Yes, please.
What is one that you are very, very proud of that you think made the biggest impact in our progression?
I gotta say, I'll mention 2. One is the reproductive health law. And the reason for that is, number one, it was very important for me to be able to break down barriers and misconceptions about what that law is about. It was never about allowing abortion or promoting promiscuity. It was about empowering women in the family to plan if they're going to have 1 kid, 2 kids, 3, 5, that's their choice. Because, and I'll tell you why, just like you, one of my very vivid memories is a typhoon, no, that hit Metro Manila. So I was in an evacuation center, and because of my awareness of what it takes to be pregnant and breastfeeding, I said, let's have a separate line for breastfeeding and pregnant women, and then they must have a separate care kit. Because when you're breastfeeding, you need more fluids kasi naglalabas ka ng milk, di ba? Then yung mga buntis then they need extra food. Anyway, so on and so forth. So I'm so proud. I was so proud of my kit for the women. Only for me to realize later on that some of these moms, as I was in line with them, they were in line, and I would have a small talk with each one. Oh, pang ilang baby mo na? And I thought they'll say first, second, third. They'd be like fifth, sixth, seventh. I'm like, oh my God. Like yung binigay ko dun na may itlog, na dagdag na protein, may dagdag na tubig, hindi na yan mapupunta sa kanya. Like any mom, mapupunta yan sa mga anak niya. So it didn't really help her in her 5th or 6th pregnancy. That's why I'm like, how do we go back to that? How do we even help her plan better?
Right.
So not only was the law significant, but it was also me also being able to stand up for what I believe was right, because it was controversial. Like, but I felt there's no one else who can explain this better, because hindi mo ako palaaway and I'm not bastos. So even with the church, I would be very patiently explaining and trying to understand how they can still do the work that they believe in. So, for example, the Catholic Church, they believe in natural contraceptives. So again, if that's how you want to talk about, then that's your role. But my role is a little bit different, diba? I have to put this in place. So that's one. But the second I want to talk about is the 105 maternity leave law. Kasi, again, that was brought about by my own experience. When I had my first baby, si Max, the law was you go back, that's the SSS policy. You go back to work after 60 days. So 2 months. Ano ba, alam ko, it's my first baby, diba? So I was breastfeeding her, then 60 days, get ready to go back to work, I go back to work. Wow, I got a fever. My breasts were so, so, so painful. Dahil nagbe-breastfeed ako, hindi ako sanay na wala yung baby ko. So namamagana yung breast ko, nag-fever na ako. And then on the emotional side, syempre I miss my baby. I had such a supportive mom, which is typical of Filipino communities. Although hindi Filipino mami ko, pero ganun pa rin. She would bring my baby to work for a few days, and then I had to learn how to pump more effectively. Anyway, so na-realize ko, ang hirap pala nung 60 days. Parang the baby kasi is ganito pa, yung 60 days hindi pa yung hindi mo pa makarga na nakatayo yung head ng baby. So I really had it in my mind na parang dapat more siguro. And then, yun nga, how many years later, I became a senator and I had that opportunity to change it. And in Nordic countries, it's even as much as 6 months. Well, then that's where you have to balance. The needs of the business community was like hard no. Kasi parang ang hirap na mawala yung employee, then the impact on them. But in this case, 105 days to me was actually 120 yun. Eh. Di ba ang weird, 105?
Yes.
Eh kasi it was a compromise between 90 and 120. 105. Yun yung history doon na 105. Ang weird. But at least when the baby is almost 4 months, medyo most babies, yung parang pwede mo nang kargahin na nakaupo, di ba? Like you don't feel like you're leaving naman a fragile infant. And as most moms, by 3 months, they're not so tiny. They're like nagkakalaman na sila. So parang I think emotionally as a mom, you're kind of ready na, okay, I'll have to go back to work na, ganon. So that's very special to me because I'd like to think that it changed the course of how life was for working moms, and I want to continue doing those things. And these kind of conversations help me because, I also learn a lot when I talk to women like you on how it impacts not just you, but your staff, the women who work for you.
If I can
Yun.
ask a last question.
Of course. Papalitan ko na to, ha? Athena's podcast.
Yes.
Okay.
If there was one bill that you could pass that's already a sure approved, what would it be about? Not specific, but what would it be about? Or directed to what sector, what community sector? Trivia.
So as we speak, my staff is mouthing something to me. Okay. That is a tough question because there's a lot of things that I would like to change. I'll give you my main answer and then I'll give you a second answer. The main answer siguro would be this. If we can embed futures thinking and sustainable development in every bill that we pass, that, kasi you're asking me for one, that I think is the only kind of bill that would really be able to encompass everything I want to change and do. Why? Because by embedding futures thinking in everything we do, mako-cover mo yun. So for example, as you gave me a tour of this building and you tell me there's going to be solar panels there and ideally if kayang ma-solar to lahat, wow, diba? So that's already foresight. Knowing that there's a female governor, I know that the needs of women would be best addressed. But how do you institutionalize this when you move on to other things? When there's no longer an Athena female governor sitting here. How do you institutionalize that? My other concern, water. We talked about that. I'm using your as an example. Water, may rainwater harvesting sila para yung toilet, dun kukunin yung water. And I swear, that's my priority. Every time I flush the toilet, I cringe because I'm like, the future generation will say, pinang-flush nyo lang yung toilet, ngayon wala kaming mainom. So that's my answer to your question na embedding futures thinking and sustainable development would probably be my one answer. On that note, the Development Academy of the Philippines is in Tagaytay City, right? And I have funding with them that requires that they train government employees. So even you can avail of it for your team to send them for futures thinking training. But the short answer I wanted to give, and that's just because it's my issue, my pressing issue on how important it is to stand by your beliefs. I'm also a big believer in kahit wala kang belief doon and you have another stand, still have an open mind. It's our job to have an open mind. So to be clear, have an open mind. But what happened with a bill that I was so passionate about, it became a law, the sin tax law taxed sin products, di ba? So alcohol, cigarettes, vapes, na-tax sila. And we passed that and we said the age of use of vapes is 21 years old and FDA will be the one to regulate it. Barely a year passed, they reversed that. And now the age of use for vapes is 18 years old. It's not FDA that will regulate this very harmful product. It's DTI. And the flavors that we limited, because in the syntax law, it was only menthol and regular original flavor. And now just go to the internet, it's all over, iba-ibang flavors. They reversed that and made it less restrictive. So why do I mention that of all? Because it's an actual example of how bad legislation can be. I talk about it everywhere I go that parents don't be fooled that vaping is safer than cigarettes because we don't have evidence that it's safer. The fact that it's full of chemicals should already scare you. And since we have a young governor, sinasama ko na yan sa kwento ko para kasama na rin yan sa advocacy mo na huwag kayong magpapaloko, di ba? Stay away from these evils. So, I mean, that's one of many, but I just had to mention it because it is a current issue that I'm dealing with.
And the research is about cigarettes, right? They're only coming out now after all these years that they've been trying to advertise it as diet friendly.
Exactly. And can I just say, if you remember this, no, you won't remember this because even I wasn't born yet nung nag-umpisa na. They would come up with posters with doctors in a white suit. Doktor talaga yung itsura, tapos pinopromote na ito yung healthier cigarette, yung menthol, ganon. And now, their playbook is exactly the same for e-cigs and vapes. They have doctors who are coming out and saying, like, and by the way, bawal yun. But ginagawa pa rin nila, papaseminar sila. So, I'm so glad you asked me that question so I can talk about it again and again, but that, you're aware about the dangers.
What are your thoughts on the pink tax?
Ooh.
Because I remember one time, I buy my own necessity.
Yes.
So I was buying napkins. And then I realized na tumaas yung presyo. But then if you compare it to the men's shaver, men's deodorant, it remains the same.
Exactly.
But a lot of the women's products, especially the personal hygiene products, the prices just keep going higher and higher. When in fact, as simple as the toilet paper, it actually also still retains.
So for those who don't know, this whole pink tax discussion revolves around the exorbitant prices or the big difference in prices between products that are sold to women. Kaya parang pink tax. Kasi parang ano kami nagbabayad ng tax dun sa product nyo. I think it's legitimate. I think that we should have real studies in the Philippines. In fact, when I first heard about this mga 10 years ago siguro, I remember I filed a resolution to really see na parang how is this in the Philippines? And then what can we do about it? So I'm glad you resurrected the topic because in view of Women's Month, it's something that we should talk about. It's something that we should study kasi just because alam ng companies that women have to buy these products, tataasan nila, di ba? Parang it's almost like we passed a law, the cheaper medicine law, years ago, which allows the government to intervene and say, you can't, to put a price ceiling. Basically, you can't price certain medicines beyond this because hindi na siya makatarungan. It's not fair. You could technically do that if you see if there's evidence that these products for women are really just marketed beyond what's reasonable. Thank you for bringing that up. Kasi minsan ang dami ding issue na natatambak din. I love it that you brought it up. Thank you. If you can do your own research here sa mga tindahan, tell me.
Okay.
Tell me, di ba? Kasi sabi nga nila, kunyari, yung pang-ahit ng lalaki, parehong pang-ahit yun,
It's just pink.
Tapos pink yung kulay, naging mas mahal yung sa babae.
Yeah.
Bakit?
Yes.
Di ba, battery operated ba yun? Sana kung may difference na gano'n,
Even
wala
the
naman daw.
moisturizer, lotion, it's the same. It's just rebranded.
But having said that, it's also, I think the one little thing that you and I can do is also share with women na until we're able to do it from a legislative point of view, kayo rin, be savvy consumers and try nyo rin bilhin yung hindi. Kasi siguro alam nilang na-attract tayo sa pink. I'll admit, na-attract ako sa pink, diba? And of course, if it's a luho product, meaning something you don't need, choice mo naman yon kung gusto mo ng pink or what. Pero dapat yung essentials.
Yes.
Yun yung pwedeng may intervention. But be savvy and do your own homework also. Thank you. It's so great that you brought that up.
I was very curious.
Yeah.
I am awaiting for your passage.
I know. Sige, uwi na ako. Magtatrabaho na ako.
No.
Thank you so much. So I think we have to end this really fun
45 minutes.
I
Pala,
think I know.
sorry.
No, but I had
Sorry.
so much fun.
Me too.
And I was looking at the time. I'm like, okay lang, bahala na sila sa schedule ko. Anyway, thank you so much, Governor Athena Tolentino.
Thank you.
Keep up
My
the
senator.
good work.
Yes.
And stay an inspiration to the young girls. Remember that little girl that says, Ate Athena, idol kita. Always keep that in mind because there are always little kids. And wait, last din ako. I always want to remind people when we talk about women's issues, our audience is not just the women. Our audience are the little boys. So we want to make sure that the moms are not just empowering their girls, but empowering their boys to treat women equally, to look at their sisters and their friends in a different light, in a light that's now more in tune with what we know are the capabilities of women. So target din natin yan. So when we talk to mothers now, I make a point of targeting their perspective as moms to little boys. Kasi yan yung future boys who we want to grow up as they treat women as equal partners.
Yes.
Diba?
And I'll wait for that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Athena. So that was our super inspiring talk with Athena. Whatever you got out of it, please share it with us. You know, if we talked about topics that inspired you, comment below, share it with your other friends. That's the goal of this whole podcast so that Athena will have her own. But yeah, comment and give us your feedback. Thank you.